My son's teacher mocked his abduction trauma, and the principal backed her up, so I found 17 other victims. Now they're both in prison, and my son helps other PTSD students fight back. 3 weeks after the hearing, I noticed Josh's MIT acceptance letter hadn't arrived. Then Harvard's went missing. Stanford never showed up. The guidance counselor shrugged when I asked about his scholarship applications. Sometimes these things get misplaced, she said, not meeting my eyes. That same week, anonymous complaints started flooding the school board. Concerned citizens wrote about my aggressive behavior and unstable parenting. The letters all had different signatures, but the same phrases, the same accusations. I recognized the writing style immediately. Josh came home one Tuesday with his phone buzzing nonstop. Unknown numbers sent message after message. You destroyed a good teacher. Weak little baby needs mommy to fight his battles. Ms. Poi deserved better than you. I changed his number that night. By Thursday, the messages had found him again. Friday brought a new problem. Josh's transcript showed incomplete credits for courses he'd already passed. The registrar claimed his junior year grades were missing. I drove straight to the district office where a nervous receptionist told me Mark Sullivan would handle transcript issues. The nameplate on his desk made my stomach drop. Sullivan, as in Fitch's brother-in-law Sullivan. I was still processing this connection when my boss Trevor called me into his office Monday morning. Someone had sent anonymous emails about my mental instability and helicopter parenting. Trevor showed me the messages, all from different addresses but written in that same familiar style. I don't believe a word of it, he said, but I thought you should know. That afternoon, I ran into Janet, the school secretary at the grocery store. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes. Mrs. Williams, she whispered, glancing around nervously. I shouldn't say anything, but Mr. Fitch has been making calls, lots of calls, from his personal phone. She hurried away before I could ask more questions. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of Josh's messages, copies of the anonymous complaints, photos of his original transcripts, a timeline of when things went missing. My dining room table became command central, covered in folders and printouts. 2 weeks before graduation, Josh attended the mandatory rehearsal. The vice principal pulled him aside. There's an issue with your credits, she said. You might not be able to walk. I was in the parking lot when Josh texted me, and I turned my car around so fast the tires squealed. The records office was supposed to be closed, but I saw a light on. Through the window, I spotted Kyle Bennett hunched over a computer. Kyle had been Ms. Poi's teaching assistant, one of her favorites. Now he worked part-time in records while finishing his degree. I watched him typing, clicking, changing numbers on what looked like Josh's transcript. I burst through the door. Kyle jumped up, knocking over his coffee. Mrs. Williams, the office is closed. Step away from the computer. I already had my phone recording. Now, his hands shook as he backed away. On the screen, I could see Josh's grades being systematically lowered. Not just Josh's, but names I recognized from my list of 17 families. Emma Stanley, David Kim, all the students who'd testified. He promised me a recommendation letter, Kyle stammered, for graduate school. Mr. Fitch said if I just helped fix the situation, make things right again. He slumped in his chair. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I sent the video to my lawyer before I even left the building. The next morning, Josh woke up to 4 flat tires. Our neighbor's security camera caught a figure in a hoodie slashing them around 3 a.m. The build, the walk, even the way he held the knife looked familiar. Brady Fitch, the principal's nephew, was in Josh's PE class. I'd seen him at school events, always hovering near his uncle. I made a decision. At school pickup, I made sure Josh mentioned loudly to his friends that we were keeping all our evidence in the garage. Mom's got everything documented, he said, just as Brady walked past. Every single piece of proof, all in one place. That night, Dale, my brother, came over. We sat in the darkened garage, waiting. Around midnight, we heard footsteps. The side door creaked open. A figure crept in carrying a gas can, the sharp smell of gasoline filling the air. Dale flipped on the lights. Brady Fitch stood frozen, gas can in hand. This isn't. He dropped the can, tried to run, but Dale blocked the door while I called 911. At the police station, Brady broke down completely. Uncle Brian said the family had to stick together. He sobbed. He got my cousin Amy to make those phone calls to Josh. My mom wrote some of the complaint letters. He promised everyone something. College recommendations, job connections, anything to help him get back at your family. The detective taking Brady's statement looked stunned. He created a whole network? I thought about Janet's guilty face, Kyle's shaking hands, the families who'd suffered in silence. He's done this before, I said. I'm sure of it. The detective leaned forward, studying Brady's tear-stained face. Names. I need names of everyone involved. Brady's confession unraveled like a spool of thread. His mother had written 3 complaint letters. Amy had access to Josh's new phone number through her job at the cell phone store. Mark Sullivan had been altering transcripts for weeks. Even the guidance counselor who'd shrugged off the missing acceptance letters was Fitch's former student teacher, now owing him for her glowing recommendation. I left the police station at dawn, exhausted but determined. Josh was still asleep when I got home, and I let him rest. He'd need his strength for what was coming. That afternoon, I called all of them. Emma Stanley's mother cried when I told her about Kyle's confession. David Kim's father had suspected something when David's college transcripts mysteriously showed failing grades in classes he'd aced. One by one, they agreed to meet. We gathered at the community center that Saturday, plus others who'd heard whispers and wanted to share their stories. The room buzzed with anger and recognition as patterns emerged. Fitch had done this at his previous school too. A mother from Riverside District showed us old newspaper clippings. Same tactics, different victims. Janet found me after the meeting, her hands trembling. I kept copies, she whispered, pressing a flash drive into my palm. Every email Fitch sent from his personal account, every call log. I knew it was wrong, but I was scared. She'd been documenting for months, trapped between guilt and fear of losing her job. The flash drive contained gold. Emails to Brady about handling the Williams problem. Messages to Mark Sullivan with specific instructions on which grades to change. A whole correspondence with someone named Daniel at the state education department, promising him a principal position if he buried our complaints. I spent Sunday organizing everything into a comprehensive timeline. Josh helped, his quiet determination replacing the haunted look in his eyes. We created charts showing the network's connections, documented every incident with dates and evidence. Dale brought over a scanner and we digitized everything, creating multiple backups. Monday morning brought new chaos. Josh's remaining college acceptances were suddenly under review. The admissions office at State University claimed they'd received an anonymous tip about academic dishonesty. I recognized the language immediately. Same phrases, same accusations, same style. This time, I was ready. I conference called the admissions directors with our lawyer on the line, sent them Kyle's confession video, Brady's police statement, the evidence of grade tampering. Within hours, Josh's acceptances were reinstated with apologies. But Fitch wasn't done. Tuesday, our mailbox was stuffed with fake legal documents claiming we owed thousands in defamation damages. Wednesday, Josh's car windshield was smashed. Thursday, someone called Child Protective Services with an anonymous tip about neglect and emotional abuse. The social worker who showed up looked apologetic. We have to investigate every claim, she said. But after reviewing our documentation and seeing the pattern of harassment, she closed the case immediately. This is clearly retaliation, she noted in her report. I hired a private investigator with money pooled from everyone. What he found within a week made everything else pale in comparison. Fitch had a history spanning 3 school districts. Each time, families who challenged him faced mysterious problems until they moved away or gave up. He'd refined his tactics over 15 years. The investigator also discovered something crucial. Fitch was using school resources for his vendetta. The anonymous emails came from IP addresses linked to the school's computer lab. The phone calls to various agencies were made during school hours from empty classrooms. He was so confident in his power that he'd gotten sloppy. 2 weeks before graduation, we had enough evidence to act, but I wanted to be strategic. Instead of going to the authorities immediately, I reached out to a journalist friend who specialized in education reporting. She was intrigued by the pattern of systematic harassment. While she investigated, more families came forward. A teacher who'd been forced out for refusing to fail struggling students. A counselor who'd been blacklisted for recommending accommodations. Fitch's network of intimidation went deeper than anyone imagined. Josh, meanwhile, was transforming. The shy, haunted boy who'd whispered in fear was finding his voice. He started a support group for students dealing with academic trauma. Word spread quickly, and soon 20 kids were meeting weekly, sharing their stories of teachers who'd crushed their spirits in the name of excellence. The Thursday before graduation, everything accelerated. The journalist called me, excited. This is huge, she said. I found similar patterns in 2 other states where Fitch worked. We're talking about decades of destroyed families. That same day, Kyle Bennett approached me in the parking lot. He looked terrible, hollow-eyed and shaking. He's planning something for graduation, he warned. I overheard him talking to someone about a court order. He's got a friend who's a clerk, someone who can make official-looking documents. I thanked Kyle and immediately called our lawyer. We'd need to be ready for anything. We all created a phone tree, ensuring everyone would be at graduation to support Josh and document any incidents. Friday night, the night before graduation, I couldn't sleep. Josh found me at the kitchen table at 3 a.m., surrounded by evidence folders. Mom, he said softly, whatever happens tomorrow, we've already won. We stood up to him. We showed everyone what he really is. He was right, but I still worried. Fitch had proven he'd stop at nothing to destroy families who challenged him. The fake court order Kyle had warned about could disrupt Josh's graduation, humiliate him in front of everyone. It would be Fitch's final attempt to break us. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully, pinning a small recorder inside my jacket. Josh put on his cap and gown, standing taller than I'd seen him in years. Dale arrived early, bringing several of the 17 families with him. We formed a convoy to the school. The auditorium was packed. I spotted Janet in the crowd, giving me a small nod. Kyle was there too, looking nervous but determined. The principal's secretary had chosen a seat where she could see everything. Even Trevor, my boss, had come to show support. As the ceremony began, I kept watching for Fitch. He wasn't in his usual spot with the administrators. The vice principal was handling the proceedings, looking uncomfortable. Where was he? Josh's row stood to line up for their diplomas. My heart pounded as he moved toward the stage. Then I saw him, Fitch, striding down the side aisle with papers in his hand, his face twisted with determination. Stop, he shouted, waving the documents. This student is not eligible to graduate. I have a court order stating that Josh Williams cannot receive his diploma pending investigation of academic fraud. The auditorium erupted in gasps and murmurs. Josh froze on stage, his face pale. The vice principal looked stricken, reaching for the papers. This was it. Fitch's final play, his last attempt to crush my son's spirit in the most public way possible. But we were ready. As Fitch reached the stage, 17 families rose from their seats, then 20 more, then 50. Soon, half the auditorium was standing in silent support of Josh. The student support group he'd started held up signs, "We stand with Josh and end academic abuse." I stepped into the aisle, my voice carrying clearly, "That's a fake document and we can prove it." I held up my phone, showing the real superintendent's number. "Would you like to call and verify?" The vice principal, looking relieved, took my phone. The conversation was brief. She handed the phone back and turned to face the audience. "These documents are fraudulent. Mr. Fitch, please leave the premises immediately." But Fitch wasn't finished. His face contorted with rage as he pointed at Josh. "This boy is a fraud. His mother manipulated the system. They destroyed good teachers with their lies." That's when Janet stood up. "No," she said, her voice shaking but clear. "You destroyed good teachers. You destroyed good students. I have proof." She held up a thick folder. 15 years of proof. The security guards moved toward Fitch, but he backed away, still ranting. "You're all weak. Soft. This is what's wrong with education today. We coddle the fragile instead of building warriors." Josh stepped forward to the microphone. The auditorium fell silent. "Mr. Fitch," he said, his voice steady, "I'm not weak because I have PTSD. I'm not soft because I needed help. I'm strong because I survived what you put me through. We all are." The applause was deafening. Fitch fled the auditorium as Josh accepted his diploma, tears streaming down both our faces. Everyone cheered. The support group kids screamed their approval. Even some teachers were clapping, finally free to show their true feelings. After the ceremony, the real superintendent arrived with the school board president and a detective. They took statements from everyone willing to talk. The fake court order was evidence of fraud. The documented harassment was evidence of stalking. Fitch's use of school resources for personal vendettas was grounds for immediate termination. But the story wasn't over. That night, as we celebrated at home with Dale and some of the other families, my phone rang. It was the journalist. "The article goes live tomorrow," she said. 3-part series, Fitch's pattern of abuse, the network he created, and the families who fought back. You've started something important. Josh was in the backyard with friends from his support group, their laughter floating through the window. For the first time in months, he looked like a regular teenager. The weight of Fitch's oppression was lifting, but I knew the real work was just beginning. The next morning, I woke to my phone buzzing with messages. The article was live, and the response was immediate. Families from Fitch's previous schools were coming forward. Teachers were sharing their stories. The hashtag #Josh Williams protocol was trending, calling for better protections for students with disabilities. But there was one more surprise waiting. Janet called, breathless with excitement. "Mrs. Williams, you need to see this. The state education department just announced an investigation into all of Fitch's former schools. They're calling it the most extensive review of academic abuse in state history." I found Josh at the kitchen table reading the article on his laptop. He looked up at me with a mixture of pride and determination. "Mom, we did it. We actually did it." "No," I corrected him, pulling him into a hug. "You did it. You stood up when it mattered most." The Monday after the article dropped, Fitch struck back hard. Josh's college housing assignment at State University vanished from their system. The financial aid office claimed they'd never received his FAFSA forms, despite my confirmation emails. I spent hours on hold, transferred between departments, each person more confused than the last. Tuesday morning, our home insurance company called. They'd received an anonymous report of hazardous conditions at our property. The inspector who showed up found nothing wrong, but warned us someone was filing false reports across multiple agencies. By afternoon, animal control arrived, responding to claims we were hoarding pets. We don't even own a goldfish. Josh discovered his summer internship offer had been mysteriously withdrawn. The company's HR department seemed genuinely baffled, mentioning vague concerns about security clearance issues. I recognized the pattern immediately. Fitch's network was still operating, even with him under investigation. Dale uncovered the connection when he ran into Mark Sullivan at a hardware store. Sullivan was buying multiple burner phones, sweating profusely. He dropped his receipt, and Dale photographed it before returning it. 23 phones purchased with cash. We now knew how the anonymous reports kept coming from different numbers. We organized a rotation to monitor key locations. Emma Stanley's mother spotted Sullivan entering the school district office after hours. David Kim's father followed Amy to 3 different cell phone stores where she was apparently activating new lines. We documented everything, building an airtight case. Wednesday brought a new escalation. Josh's acceptance to the honors program at State University was suddenly under review. The program director mentioned receiving troubling information about Josh's character. I demanded specifics but got only vague references to concerning behavior patterns. That's when Alexandra, one of the parents from our support network, made a crucial discovery. Her daughter worked part-time at the university admissions office and overheard 2 administrators discussing pressure from a former principal with connections. She couldn't record the conversation, but she got names. I spent Thursday tracking down those names. One administrator, Daniel, was the same person from Fitch's emails. The one promised a principal position. The other was Sullivan's college roommate. The network ran deeper than we'd imagined, with tentacles reaching into multiple institutions. Kyle Bennett reached out again, this time with screenshots. Fitch was coordinating everything through encrypted messages, but Kyle still had access to the account from when he'd helped with the grade changes. The messages revealed planned disruptions for the next 2 months, targeting not just Josh, but all of the families. Friday morning, Josh's car wouldn't start. The mechanic found sugar in the gas tank. Our neighbor's security camera caught a figure matching Amy's build near our driveway at 4 a.m., but proving it was her would be nearly impossible. Fitch had learned from Brady's arrest, keeping his remaining allies at arm's length. The journalist called with an update. Her investigation had uncovered similar patterns in 5 states where Fitch had worked, dozens of families with eerily similar stories. She was preparing a follow-up piece, but Fitch's lawyer was threatening defamation suits against anyone who spoke publicly. I made a decision. Instead of playing defense, we'd go on the offensive. I contacted every family Fitch had targeted over his career, sharing our documentation methods and evidence-gathering techniques. Within days, a network of over 60 families formed, all sharing information and resources. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Janet discovered Fitch had been using a school district credit card for personal expenses, including the burner phones Sullivan bought. She'd photographed the statements before Fitch could destroy them. Financial fraud was something the authorities couldn't ignore. Saturday, 2 days before Josh was supposed to leave for college, everything converged. The state investigator called, asking for all our evidence. The financial fraud had triggered a full audit of Fitch's activities. They'd frozen his assets and were building a comprehensive case. But Fitch made one last desperate move. Josh received an official-looking letter claiming he was under investigation for academic fraud. The letter threatened criminal prosecution if he attended any state university. It looked authentic, complete with official letterhead and signatures. This time, I didn't panic. I called the state attorney general's office directly. Within an hour, they confirmed the letter was fake and issued a cease and desist order against Fitch and his associates. Impersonating state officials was a felony, and they had proof Sullivan had printed the letters at a copy shop. The arrests happened Sunday morning. Fitch, Sullivan, Amy, and 3 others were charged with conspiracy, fraud, and harassment. The police found evidence of plans to target other families, including detailed files on each student who'd testified. Kyle's cooperation and Janet's evidence made the case airtight. Monday, Josh left for college as planned. The honors program director called personally to apologize and confirm his spot was secure. secure. All of us gathered to see him off, their own children heading to various colleges with renewed confidence. The state education department announced a mandatory protocol that week, requiring all schools to provide documented accommodations for students with PTSD and other disabilities. Training programs for administrators would emphasize supporting vulnerable students rather than toughening them up. Fitch ultimately pled guilty to avoid a longer sentence. 3 years in prison, loss of his pension and teaching license, and restitution to all affected families. His network crumbled as associates rushed to make deals. Sullivan got 18 months. Amy received probation and community service. Josh thrived at college, majoring in special education with a focus on trauma-informed teaching. He mentors high school students facing similar challenges, sharing his story to help others find their voice.